The storm did not knock politely against the windows of Blackthorne Palace. It attacked. Rain lashed the ancient Gothic towers perched above the cliffs of Northern California, and lightning cracked across the sky like the wrath of forgotten gods. Inside the estate, however, everything was silent, controlled, untouchable, until he returned. King Lucien Valemont, ruler of the Western Vampire Dominion, was not scheduled to return for another 3 days. The council summit in Prague had ended in bloodless politics and cold negotiations. He had left early, irritated, restless, suffocated by immortals who mistook cruelty for strength. He wanted quiet. He wanted order. He wanted his kingdom exactly as he left it. The iron gates parted at his silent command. His black car rolled up the winding drive, tires hissing against wet stone. Guards bowed as he entered. No one dared meet his eyes. Lucien was feared for good reason. He was not merely a vampire. He was ancient, calculated, emotionless, or so they believed. He stepped through the towering doors of Blackthorne Palace, his long coat dripping rain onto marble floors polished to a mirror sheen. The scent of old stone, candle wax, and night-blooming roses usually calmed him. But tonight, something was different. His senses sharpened instantly. Under the sterile chill of the palace air was something warm, human, and afraid. Lucien stilled. There were humans employed at Blackthorne, day staff, kitchen workers, groundskeepers. But they were restricted, controlled, never allowed beyond designated quarters. This scent was not in the servant corridors. It was coming from the forbidden East Wing, the wing no human was ever permitted to enter. A low, dangerous quiet settled into his chest. He moved. To human eyes, he would have been invisible, a whisper of shadows sliding down endless hallways lined with portraits of long-dead vampire royalty. Then he heard it, a crash, followed by a sharp, frightened inhale, and a man's voice. "Stupid girl, do you know what you've done?" Lucien reached the carved oak doors of the East Wing library. They were open. His jaw tightened. Inside the vast chamber of antique books and crystal chandeliers stood 3 figures. One of them was on her knees. She couldn't have been more than 22. Her uniform was simple black cotton, the fabric worn thin at the sleeves. Her dark hair had fallen from its tie, cascading messily over her shoulders. A shattered porcelain vase lay beside her, white fragments scattered across priceless Persian rugs. In front of her stood Victor Hale, the estate's head steward. And he was furious. That vase was from the 1700s. Victor hissed, grabbing the girl by the arm and yanking her to her feet. "Do you understand how much you just cost this house?" I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but she did not cry. "You told me to dust the shelves? I didn't see the edge." "Excuses?" he snapped. "Girls like you always have excuses. Girls like you." Lucien's eyes darkened. The girl's name surfaced in his memory. Elena Marquez. New hire. Temporary maid. Background check. Clean. Financial status. Struggling. Family. Deceased mother. No father listed. Address. Low-income housing on the south side of the city. Victor's grip tightened. "You're lucky the king isn't here," he muttered. "He would have thrown you out into the rain without pay." Lucien stepped forward. "I am here." The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Victor froze. Elena's head lifted slowly, and their eyes met. For one suspended second, the world narrowed. She had expected a monster. That was clear in the way her breath caught. But she did not look away. Her eyes were soft brown, wide but steady. Frightened, yes, but not broken. Victor released her arm as though burned and dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty, I didn't expect." "Clearly," Lucien replied. His voice was calm. Too calm. Elena attempted to kneel as well, but her legs slipped on porcelain shards. She gasped as a sharp edge cut into her palm. Blood. Fresh. The scent flooded the room. Guards outside stiffened. Victor paled. Lucien did not move. Every vampire instinct within him recognized the warmth of it, the pulse beneath her skin. But something else overpowered it. She did not cry. She did not beg. Instead, she quickly curled her injured hand inward, as if hiding it would prevent trouble. "I'm sorry for the mess, Your Majesty," she said quietly. "It was my mistake." Victor looked almost triumphant. "As I was explaining." "You were grabbing her," Lucien interrupted. Silence fell like a blade. Victor swallowed. "Discipline is necessary, sire." Lucien's gaze shifted to Elena's arm, where faint red marks were already forming from Victor's grip. He stepped closer. Elena stiffened but did not retreat. "You are injured," he observed. It's nothing, she said quickly. Please don't fire him. Victor blinked. Lucien's eyes narrowed slightly. Explain. She hesitated, then spoke carefully. He has a family. I heard him mention his daughter needs surgery. If he loses this job because of me. She swallowed. That wouldn't be fair. The room seemed to still around her words. She was bleeding. Humiliated. Terrified. And defending the man who hurt her. Lucien had ruled for centuries. He had seen ambition disguised as kindness. Manipulation wrapped in innocence. This was not that. This was genuine. Leave, Lucien said at last. Victor looked confused. Your Majesty? I was not speaking to her. Victor's face drained of color. Within seconds he was gone. The doors shut heavily behind him. Now only the vampire king and the human girl remained. Rain pounded against the tall arched windows. Elena finally exhaled shakily. I'm sorry, she repeated, kneeling carefully to gather the porcelain pieces. I'll work overtime. I'll pay for it. Lucien watched her. Most humans trembled in his presence. Most couldn't even meet his gaze. She was afraid. But she was still trying. Still choosing responsibility. Still choosing kindness. You cannot afford it, he said. She paused. No, she admitted softly. But I can try. Lightning illuminated the room. For the first time in over a century, something unfamiliar stirred in Lucien Valemont's immortal chest. Not hunger. Not irritation. Curiosity. You will not pay for the vase, he said. Her head lifted. Your Majesty? You will, however, tell me why a girl who works 2 shifts a day insists on defending a man who just insulted her. Her lips parted slightly in surprise. And outside, thunder rolled across the cliffs like a prophecy awakening. Because the vampire king had come home early. And he had just found something in his forbidden wing he never expected. A human girl with nothing. Except courage. And this was only the beginning. The storm did not fade that night. It deepened. Rain streaked down the cathedral windows of Blackthorne Palace as if the sky itself was trying to listen to what would unfold inside. Elena Marquez remained kneeling on the cold marble floor, carefully collecting shards of porcelain in her uninjured hand. Each fragment reflected distorted pieces of her face. Wide eyes, pale cheeks, determination trembling beneath exhaustion. King Lucien Valemont did not move. He simply watched. No human had ever been alone with him in the forbidden East Wing. And certainly not one who had just defended another person instead of herself. You may stand, he said at last. Elena rose slowly. Blood from her cut palm traced faint red lines down her wrist, but she seemed more concerned about staining the rug than about the pain. You asked me a question, Your Majesty, she said quietly. About why I defended him. Lucien's silver-gray eyes fixed on her. I did. She hesitated as if measuring how much honesty was safe. When you grow up with nothing, she began carefully, you learn that losing a job can destroy more than just one person. Lucien said nothing. My mother worked 3 jobs, Elena continued. When she got sick, she hid it because she was afraid of being replaced. She collapsed during a shift. They let her go the next day. No benefits. No apology. Her voice did not crack. But something in the room shifted. She died 3 months later, Elena finished softly. Silence followed. Not awkward. Heavy. Lucien had witnessed wars. Betrayals. Centuries of human suffering. Yet this small confession, spoken without self-pity, struck something deeper than he expected. You believe kindness prevents cruelty, he said. No, she replied, surprising him. I believe cruelty spreads faster when no one interrupts it. The answer lingered between them. She was not naive. She was deliberate. Lucien stepped closer. Close enough that she could likely feel the unnatural coolness radiating from him. Close enough to remind her that he was not human. Do you know what I am? He asked quietly. Her pulse quickened. But she held his gaze. Yes. Most humans avoided saying it. She did not. And you still chose to work here? He pressed. She gave the smallest nod. The pay is higher than anywhere else in the city. I send most of it to the clinic that treated my mother. They help families who can't afford medicine. Lucien studied her face carefully. No deception. No greed. Just stubborn compassion. You are afraid, he observed. Yes, she admitted. But you remain. Yes. Why? For the first time, her eyes flickered, not with fear but with something like quiet defiance. Because fear doesn't get to decide my life anymore. Lightning flashed behind her, illuminating the edges of her hair like a halo of fire. For centuries, Lucien had surrounded himself with power, strength, strategy, ruthlessness. No one in his court spoke like this. No one in his world chose bravery when submission was easier. His gaze lowered briefly to her injured hand. You are bleeding. It will stop. Without warning, he reached for her wrist. She flinched just slightly but did not pull away. His fingers hovered near the cut, not touching skin, merely observing. Vampire control required discipline. And Lucien possessed more discipline than most kings possessed armies. Sit, he instructed. She obeyed. He moved to a nearby antique cabinet and retrieved a small silver box. Inside were sterile cloths and antiseptic oils used for human staph injuries. Elena blinked in surprise as he knelt in front of her. A king did not kneel. Not for anyone. Yet here he was. He cleaned the cut carefully. His movements were precise, controlled. You should have reported the injury, he said. It seems small. Small wounds become dangerous when ignored. She glanced at him. I know. The double meaning did not escape him. When he finished wrapping her hand, he stood again, reclaiming his imposing height. You will not return to general maid duties, he said suddenly. Her eyes widened. If this is about the vase. It is not. His voice cut gently but firmly. You will report directly to the East Wing beginning tomorrow. Her breath caught. The Forbidden Wing, she whispered before she could stop herself. A faint shadow of amusement touched his expression. Nothing in this palace is forbidden to those under my protection. The word hung in the air. Protection. She looked confused. I don't need protection, she said quickly. I just need work. Lucien stepped closer again, and this time the air itself seemed to tighten. You misunderstand, he said softly. Protection is not weakness. For a moment, something vulnerable flickered behind his eyes, something ancient and weary. You were mistreated in my home, he continued. That is my responsibility. Her throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not with accountability. Not with respect. A knock interrupted them. The heavy doors opened and Marcus, Lucien's second-in-command, entered. Tall, sharp-eyed, suspicious. His gaze landed instantly on Elena. And darkened. Your Majesty, Marcus said slowly, is there a reason a human is in this wing? Lucien did not look at him. Yes. Marcus waited. That reason is none of your concern. The temperature dropped several degrees. Marcus's jaw tightened. With respect, sire, the council will not approve of. I do not require their approval. Elena stood very still. She could feel the tension between the two vampires like an invisible storm. Marcus studied her carefully. She knows what we are? He asked. Yes. And you trust her? Lucien's answer came without hesitation. I do. The certainty in his voice shocked them both. Marcus exhaled slowly. There are rumors, he said carefully. Hunters have been active near the southern border. Bringing a human closer to the throne increases risk. Hunters. The word sent a flicker of fear through Elena's spine. Lucien noticed. She is under my protection, he repeated. That ends the discussion. Marcus bowed stiffly and left. Silence returned. Elena swallowed. You don't have to defend me like that, she said quietly. Lucien's gaze returned to her. I do. Why? The question was barely above a whisper. He stepped closer once more, studying her face as though searching for something hidden beneath it. Because he felt it. Something unusual. Something ancient. You are not ordinary, he said. She blinked. I'm very ordinary. No, he replied softly. You are not. He reached toward a nearby bookshelf and pulled out a thick leather-bound volume. Ancient script covered its pages. He opened it and turned it toward her. Read this. She glanced down. Her brows furrowed. Then slowly she spoke. The words flowed from her lips smoothly, fluently, in a language that had not been spoken aloud in centuries. Lucien's entire body went still. The text was Old Noctarian, the first language of vampire royalty. Impossible for a human to know. Yet she read it effortlessly. When she finished, she looked up in confusion. What? She asked softly. Lucien closed the book. Where did you learn that? Learn what? That language. She shook her head slowly. I don't know what you mean. It just made sense. A cold realization settled over him. There were ancient prophecies. Whispers of a human-born soul capable of bridging two worlds. A queen not made by blood, but by heart. He had dismissed them as superstition. Until now. Elena shifted uncomfortably. Did I do something wrong? No, he said quietly. You did something extraordinary. Outside, the storm finally began to calm. But inside Blackthorne Palace, something far more powerful had awakened. Because the Vampire King had not just found a brave human girl. He had found a mystery. And perhaps, his destiny. The storm had passed. But peace did not follow. Morning light crept across the cliffs below Blackthorne Palace, turning the ocean silver. The world looked calm from a distance. Untouched. Serene. Inside the palace, tension coiled like a drawn blade. Elena barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ancient book. Heard herself speaking a language she had never studied. Felt the weight of King Lucien's stare when he realized what it meant. You are not ordinary. The words echoed in her chest. She stood before the tall window in her small servant's room, watching fog drift through the pine trees. For the first time since arriving at the estate, she did not feel invisible. And that terrified her more than anything. A soft knock startled her. Enter, she called quietly. The door opened to reveal a young maid, Sophie, carrying a folded bundle of dark fabric. The king has reassigned you, Sophie said, unable to hide her curiosity. You're to report directly to the East Wing this morning. Elena nodded. She had expected that. But what she had not expected was the garment Sophie unfolded onto the bed. It wasn't a maid's uniform. It was a deep midnight blue dress, simple but elegant, tailored with understated grace. I think, Sophie whispered, eyes wide, you've been promoted. Elena touched the fabric carefully. I'm still staff, she said. Sophie gave her a look that clearly said that wasn't how the rest of the palace saw it. Lucien stood in the East Wing library, staring out at the courtyard below. He had not felt unsettled in centuries. Yet this morning, unease pressed against him like a warning. Marcus entered without knocking. They've been sighted, Marcus said grimly. Lucien didn't turn. How many? 4 confirmed. Possibly more hidden in the tree line. Hunters. Not amateurs. Not reckless humans chasing myths. These were trained vampire hunters. Organized, armed, patient. They've been watching the estate since dawn, Marcus continued. We suspect they know you returned early. Lucien's jaw tightened. Hunters rarely attacked a palace directly. They observed first. Looked for weakness. Or leverage. Has there been any breach? Lucien asked. Not yet. But, Marcus hesitated. But what? Their focus isn't the gates. Lucien turned slowly. They've been watching the servant quarters. Silence fell heavy between them. Elena. Marcus's expression hardened. Bringing a human closer to you was already dangerous. If they believe she matters to you. She does not, Lucien said sharply. The lie felt strange on his tongue. Marcus held his gaze carefully. Hunters exploit emotional attachments. If they sense even the possibility. She is under my protection, Lucien interrupted. Protection paints a target, Marcus replied evenly. Before Lucien could respond, a distant sound pierced the morning calm. A scream. Human. Lucien vanished. Marcus followed. Elena had just stepped into the courtyard when it happened. She had been instructed to meet Lucien in the East Wing. The air felt different this morning, thicker somehow. Then she felt it. The wrongness. A shift in the trees beyond the gates. Before she could process it, a flash of silver streaked toward her. An arrow. It grazed her shoulder, slicing fabric and skin. She stumbled back with a gasp. Chaos erupted. Guards roared. Alarms sounded. From the forest line, dark-clad figures emerged, hunters armed with crossbows and ultraviolet-tipped weapons designed to weaken vampires. One of them locked eyes with her. And smiled. She's the leverage, one shouted. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She ran. Not toward safety. Toward the palace doors, where several younger human staff members stood frozen in fear. Get inside, she shouted, grabbing Sophie's hand. Another arrow struck the stone beside her head. Vampire guards blurred into motion, intercepting the attackers with inhuman speed. Lucien appeared in the courtyard like a storm given form. His eyes were no longer silver. They were black. Pure night. He caught an incoming arrow midair and snapped it in half. Inside, he commanded Elena. But she didn't move. One of the hunters had aimed at a human groundskeeper too slow to escape. Without thinking, Elena shoved him aside. The arrow meant for him struck her instead. This time it didn't graze. It embedded into her upper arm. She fell hard against the stone. Pain exploded through her body. The courtyard went silent for half a second. Then Lucien roared. Not in hunger. Not in rage alone, but in something primal. Protective. He moved faster than sight, disarming 2 hunters instantly. Marcus and the guards overwhelmed the others, forcing retreat into the forest. Within moments the courtyard was clear. But Lucien was already kneeling beside Elena. The arrow shaft trembled with each shallow breath she took. "It's okay," she whispered weakly. It was not okay. The arrow tip glowed faintly violet. Ultraviolet toxin. Designed to poison vampire bloodlines. On a human, its effects were unpredictable. "Bring the physician," Lucien ordered sharply. He lifted her carefully as though she were made of glass. She tried to stay conscious. "I'm sorry," she murmured. His eyes darkened. "For what?" "For causing trouble." The words hit harder than the arrow. "You did not cause this," he said quietly. He carried her into the palace, into the east wing. Into his chambers. The royal physician worked quickly, removing the arrow and neutralizing the toxin. Elena drifted in and out of awareness, fever rising. Lucien remained beside her the entire time. "She'll live," the physician said at last. "But the toxin will cause intense pain before it fades." "Then ease it," Lucien replied coldly. "We cannot eliminate it entirely without vampire blood," the physician said carefully. The room stilled. Vampire blood could heal. But it bound. It created a connection between donor and recipient. Ancient law forbade giving royal blood to humans without council approval. Lucien did not hesitate. "Leave us." The physician bowed and exited. Elena shivered against silk sheets far too luxurious for someone like her. Lucien sat beside her. "You stepped in front of that arrow," he said softly. Her eyelids fluttered. "He would have died," she whispered. "So might you." She managed the faintest smile. "I guess I'm stubborn." He studied her pale face. Centuries of war. Of politics. Of ruthless survival. And yet this human girl, fragile and wounded, had chosen bravery without calculation. Without benefit. Slowly, deliberately, Lucien bit into his own wrist. Dark crimson welled against pale skin. He lifted her gently. "Elena," he said quietly. "Drink." Her eyes opened slightly. Confusion flickered. But instinct, ancient and unexplainable, guided her. She drank. Not much. Just enough. Warmth spread through her body almost instantly. The fever began to recede. The pain dulled. Lucien felt it too. The connection. Not control. Not ownership. Something deeper. A thread. Ancient and steady. Her breathing evened. She slipped into peaceful sleep. Lucien remained still long after. Marcus entered silently. "You broke law," he said. "Yes. The council will demand explanation. They will receive none." Marcus studied the sleeping girl. "She saved 3 humans today," he said quietly. "And nearly died doing it." Lucien's voice lowered. "She does not run from danger." "No," Marcus agreed. "She runs toward it." Silence stretched. Then Marcus asked the question neither had spoken aloud. "Do you believe the prophecy?" Lucien's gaze remained on Elena. "I believe," he said slowly, "that the hunters knew she mattered before I did." Outside, the forest stood dark and watching. The hunters had retreated. But not defeated. They had confirmed something today. The vampire king had a weakness. And her name was Elena Marquez. Inside the east wing, she slept peacefully, unaware that her life had just intertwined with immortality in a way that could never be undone. The bond had formed. The war had begun. And the vampire king would burn kingdoms before he let harm touch her again. Elena woke to silence. Not the fragile quiet of early morning, but the heavy, watchful silence of a palace holding its breath. Soft gray light filtered through towering windows. Silk sheets surrounded her. The air smelled faintly of cedarwood and something cooler, something ancient. She sat up too quickly. Pain flickered in her arm, but it was distant now. Manageable. Her memory rushed back in fragments. The courtyard. The arrow. Lucien's voice. And warmth, dark and powerful, spreading through her veins. Her hand lifted slowly to her lips. Vampire blood. Her heartbeat quickened. The doors opened before she could gather her thoughts. Lucien entered. He had changed into a tailored black suit, composed and regal, as if the previous day's chaos had been nothing more than a passing inconvenience. But his eyes gave him away. They searched her immediately. "You are awake." "Yes," she said softly. He crossed the room and measured steps. "How do you feel?" She flexed her fingers carefully. The wound had closed, leaving only a faint silver line. "Better than I should," she admitted. He studied her closely as if expecting some visible transformation. There will be side effects, he said. Her throat tightened. Like what? You may experience heightened senses. Increased resilience. Possibly dreams. Dreams? He did not elaborate. Instead he stepped back slightly. The council has arrived. Elena blinked. The council? The ruling body of vampire territories. They are displeased. With me? She asked, startled. With me, he corrected calmly. For giving you my blood. Her stomach dropped. You weren't supposed to. It is done. His tone ended the subject, but tension lingered beneath it. Elena, he said more quietly, what happened yesterday has altered certain expectations. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. I know. He stepped closer again. You stepped in front of a weapon designed to kill. You would have done the same, she replied instinctively. Something flickered in his expression. Yes, he admitted. Silence stretched between them, no longer awkward but charged. Then the palace doors thundered open somewhere in the distance. Voices echoed through marble halls. The council had arrived. The throne chamber of Blackthorne Palace had not hosted a full council assembly in decades. Ancient vampires filled the grand hall now, men and women dressed in dark elegance, their presence heavy with centuries of power. Elena stood at the edge of the chamber, wearing the midnight blue dress Sophie had given her. She felt small, human, exposed. Lucien sat upon the obsidian throne, carved from volcanic stone and inlaid with silver sigils older than most civilizations. He looked untouchable. But she knew better now. She had seen him kneel. A tall woman stepped forward from the council. Her hair was white as frost, her gaze sharp as cut glass. King Lucien Valemont, she began smoothly, you have violated the Crimson Accord. Lucien's posture did not change. I have. Murmurs rippled. The woman's eyes shifted to Elena. And you have given royal blood to a human. Yes. Gasps followed. Elena's fingers curled at her sides. The woman approached her slowly. Do you understand what you carry now, child? Elena swallowed. No. You carry a bond, the woman said. Royal blood does not heal without consequence. It binds. It protects. It recognizes. Elena's heart pounded. Recognizes what? The woman's gaze sharpened. Worth. Lucien's eyes darkened slightly, but he allowed the conversation. Another council member stepped forward. The hunters targeted her specifically, he said. They believed she mattered. They guessed. Marcus interjected from beside the throne. They were correct, the frost-haired woman replied calmly. The chamber grew colder. Elena Marquez, she continued, you read Old Noctarian fluently. Elena stiffened. Yes. That language is sealed within royal lineage. No human has spoken it in 500 years. I didn't know what it was, Elena said honestly. It just felt familiar. A murmur swept through the hall again. Lucien finally stood. The room quieted instantly. She has shown courage, he said evenly. Compassion. Integrity. Those are human traits, another counselor said dismissively. And yet, Lucien replied, voice sharpening, they are rarer among immortals. Silence. The frost-haired woman studied him carefully. You believe she is connected to the prophecy of the veil. Lucien did not answer immediately. Elena's pulse roared in her ears. Prophecy. Of course there was a prophecy. There are ancient texts, Lucien said slowly, that speak of a human-born soul capable of bridging vampire and mortal worlds. And you believe this maid is that soul? Someone scoffed. Elena flinched slightly at the word maid. Lucien noticed. His voice cooled. I believe dismissing her would be foolish. The frost-haired woman circled Elena thoughtfully. Then let us test her. The chamber shifted. Elena's breath caught. Test? She echoed. If you carry royal resonance, the woman said, the blood sigil will respond to you. At the center of the throne chamber floor lay an ancient circular marking, etched silver glowing faintly. Lucien's jaw tightened. The sigil is not necessary. It is, the woman replied. Unless you fear the result. A challenge. Lucien did not back down from challenges. But this was different. Elena, he said quietly, stepping down from the throne, you do not have to do this. She looked at him. At the council. At the watching eyes filled with doubt. Her entire life she had been underestimated. Poor girl. Servant girl. Ordinary girl. Fear doesn't get to decide my life anymore. She inhaled slowly. I'll do it. Lucien searched her face. You are certain? No, she admitted softly. But I'm not running. Something like pride flickered behind his composed exterior. She stepped toward the center of the chamber. The silver sigil pulsed faintly beneath her feet. The frost-haired counselor raised a hand and whispered ancient words. The sigil flared. Light shot upward in a column around Elena. She gasped but did not move. The air hummed. The council leaned forward. For one suspended heartbeat. Nothing happened. Then, the sigil shifted color. From cold silver to deep royal blue. The same shade as Lucien's crest. The chamber erupted in stunned silence. The light spiraled upward, forming intricate patterns around her like living script. Elena felt warmth, not burning, not painful, just powerful. Like recognition. Lucien stepped forward instinctively. The sigil responded to him too, threads of light weaving between them. A visible connection. Ancient. Undeniable. The light faded slowly. Elena remained standing. Unharmed. Breathing hard. The frost-haired woman looked shaken. It has not responded that way, she whispered, since the last Queen of the Vale. A murmur of shock rippled through the chamber. Lucien's voice cut through it. Elena Marquez, he said clearly, is under my protection. Not as a servant. He stepped beside her. But as my chosen. The word echoed through stone walls. Chosen. Not claimed. Not owned. Chosen. Gasps filled the chamber. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. This was unprecedented. A human, elevated, recognized, validated by ancient magic itself. The frost-haired woman inclined her head slowly. The sigil has spoken, she said. We cannot deny its judgment. One by one reluctant bows followed. Not to Lucien. To Elena. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Lucien leaned slightly toward her. You stood your ground, he murmured. Her voice trembled. I was terrified. Yes, he said softly. And you stood anyway. The chamber began to empty. The council would not be pleased. But they could not overturn the sigil. When they were finally alone, Elena exhaled shakily. What does this mean? She whispered. Lucien regarded her with a gaze no longer distant. It means, he said quietly, that the world will not treat you as invisible again. Her chest tightened. I don't want power. I know. He stepped closer. And that is precisely why you deserve it. Outside the throne chamber, whispers spread through immortal corridors. The vampire king had elevated a human. The sigil had confirmed her resonance. The prophecy stirred. And beyond the forest line, hidden in shadow, the hunters watched the palace with renewed determination. Because now they knew. The human girl was not merely leverage. She was becoming something far more dangerous. Hope. And hope was far more threatening than fear. The palace did not sleep that night. Not after the sigil changed color. Not after the council bowed. And certainly not after word spread beyond Blackthorne's walls. Elena stood alone on the balcony outside the east wing, the ocean roaring far below. The night wind lifted her dark hair, carrying the scent of salt and pine. Chosen. The word felt heavier than any insult she had ever endured. She had not come to this palace seeking destiny. She had come for a paycheck. For survival. For dignity. Now ancient magic had wrapped itself around her life like a crown she never asked to wear. Behind her, the doors opened softly. She didn't need to turn to know it was him. Lucien's presence was distinct, not overwhelming, not suffocating, but steady. Controlled power. Silent strength. You should be resting, he said quietly. She gave a small, tired smile. Is that an order, Your Majesty? His gaze softened at the edge. It is a suggestion. She leaned against the stone railing. They bowed to me, she said. Vampires centuries older than you. Yes. I don't understand why. Lucien stepped beside her, staring out over the dark horizon. Power recognizes what it lacks, he said. She glanced at him. And what does it lack? Restraint. Compassion. Moral courage. Her throat tightened slightly. I'm just me. And that, he replied, is precisely the problem for those who rule by fear. Silence settled between them, not empty but full. The bond between them pulsed faintly, like a distant heartbeat neither could ignore. Elena inhaled deeply. The hunters, she said softly. They'll come back. Yes. And they'll come for me. Yes. His honesty was unflinching. She appreciated that. You could send me away, she said. Somewhere hidden. Somewhere safe. Lucien turned toward her fully now. There is no place safer than here. But the palace is a target. So am I. The wind picked up, tugging at her dress. You didn't hesitate, she said quietly. When you gave me your blood. No. Why? The question lingered in the night air. Lucien rarely explained himself. He ruled through action, not confession. But tonight felt different. You were willing to die for strangers, he said slowly. Without power. Without protection. He stepped closer. I have ruled for centuries, Elena. I have seen immortals betray kingdoms to preserve themselves. His voice lowered. You ran toward danger. Her heart trembled. You would have done the same. Yes, he admitted. Their eyes locked. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding not built on romance alone, but on shared instinct. Protection. Sacrifice. Choice. Before she could respond, the air shifted. A sharp crack echoed from the courtyard below. Lucien stiffened instantly. Then came the alarms. Not the distant warning of hunters testing boundaries. This was different. Closer. Inside the walls. Lucien vanished from the balcony. Elena ran after him. The grand hall was chaos. Smoke curled near the eastern entrance. Guards moved in precise formations. Marcus stood near the shattered doors, blade drawn. They breached the outer wall, Marcus said sharply. Distraction at the south gate. Lucien's eyes scanned the room. How many? 6 inside. Possibly more outside. Another explosion echoed through the palace corridors. Elena's pulse spiked. They're trying to flush you out, Marcus continued. Force confrontation. Lucien's gaze flickered briefly toward Elena. Stay behind me. She nodded, but her jaw tightened. Hunters flooded the corridor, masked, armed with specialized weapons designed to weaken vampires without harming humans. One of them saw her. There, he shouted. The girl? Lucien moved like a storm unleashed. Weapons shattered. Hunters were disarmed and restrained with terrifying precision. But these hunters were trained. One activated a device strapped to his arm. A pulse of ultraviolet light burst outward. Vampire guard staggered. Lucien hissed in pain but remained standing. Elena's instincts flared. She spotted a fallen guard, human, pinned beneath debris near the burning doorway. Without hesitation she ran toward him. Elena. Lucien's voice thundered. She ignored it. The guard was unconscious, bleeding from his temple. Flames crept closer. She dragged him free with surprising strength, stronger than she remembered possessing. The faint trace of royal blood within her surged. A hunter noticed. He aimed, not at Lucien, at her. Time slowed. Lucien saw it. Too far. Too many obstacles. Elena turned just as the hunter fired. But not at her heart. At the sigil mark glowing faintly beneath the palace floor. The shot struck the stone. And the palace shook. Ancient wards cracked. Marcus shouted, They're targeting the foundation. This was not an assassination attempt. It was sabotage. The hunters retreated swiftly, vanishing before full vampire retaliation could respond. Silence fell again, but it was broken. The eastern wall smoldered. Cracks spidered along the marble floor. Lucien stood motionless in the center of the damage. They weren't trying to kill me, he said coldly. No, Marcus agreed. They were testing the bond. Elena stepped forward. They think I'm the weakness. Lucien's jaw tightened. They are mistaken. But doubt flickered in the room. The hunters had proven something tonight. The sigil connection amplified Elena's presence. Amplified her visibility. And possibly, amplified the risk to the kingdom. Later, in the throne chamber, emergency repairs underway, the council reassembled. Their expressions were darker this time. This is escalation, one counselor said. The hunters are no longer probing. They are striking. And they strike at her, another added. Elena stood beside Lucien, shoulders squared. She is the variable, a third said. Remove the variable and the threat diminishes. Lucien's voice cut through the chamber like ice. Clarify your meaning. Send her away, the frost-haired woman said carefully. Sever the bond before it deepens. The words hung like poison. Elena's breath slowed. Sever the bond. Lucien's expression became unreadable. It is possible, the woman continued. There are rituals. Painful. Permanent. Permanent. The connection between them would vanish. The protection. The recognition. The thread that now hummed quietly in her chest. Elena, Lucien said without looking at her, the choice is yours. The chamber fell silent. Every ancient eye watched her. For the first time in her life she held power over kings. She could leave. Return to anonymity. Return to safety. Where she could stay. Stand beside a ruler in the middle of a war she never asked to join. Her voice was steady when she spoke. If I leave, she said, the hunters won't stop. No one answered. They'll find another reason, she continued. Another weakness. Another target. The council shifted uncomfortably. Lucien watched her carefully. I won't run, she said softly. The words were not loud. But they were absolute. The frost-haired woman studied her. You understand that staying could cost lives. Yes. You understand you may be hunted for the rest of your life. Yes. And you choose this? Elena turned toward Lucien. He did not command. He did not influence. He simply waited. I choose to stand, she said. The bond between them pulsed stronger. Lucien's voice lowered not to the council, but to her. Then you will not stand alone. The council murmured again. The decision had been made. War would not be avoided. But it would not be faced in fear. That night, as the palace repairs continued and guards doubled their patrols, Elena remained in the east wing. Lucien stood beside her at the window once more. You could have left, he said quietly. I know. Why didn't you? She hesitated. Then answered honestly. Because this is the first place I've ever felt seen. The word struck deeper than any weapon. Lucien turned toward her fully. In his centuries of rule, countless alliances had formed through power, strategy, necessity. This was different. This was choice. Slowly, deliberately, he reached for her hand, not commanding, not claiming. Asking. She placed her hand in his. The connection steadied. Not possession. Partnership. Outside the palace walls, hunters regrouped in the forest, adjusting plans. Inside the throne chamber, ancient vampires prepared for conflict. And at the center of it all stood a human girl who refused to run, and a vampire king who refused to let her fall. The kingdom had chosen its path, and there would be no turning back. The hunters did not wait long. They struck 3 nights later. But this time they did not hide in forests or shadows. They came in numbers. Blackthorne Palace stood illuminated under a silver crescent moon, its towers cutting into the sky like obsidian blades. The ocean below roared violently against the cliffs, as if the world itself sensed what was coming. Inside the throne chamber, Elena stood beside Lucien, not behind him. Beside him. She wore no crown. No jewels. Only the midnight blue gown that had quietly become her armor. Marcus entered swiftly. They've surrounded the northern ridge. 40 at least. Lucien's expression did not change. They want spectacle, Marcus added. They want to expose us. Elena's heartbeat quickened, but not from fear alone. From clarity. They don't just want you, she said softly. Lucien looked at her. They want the idea of us, she continued. A human standing with a vampire king. That threatens their narrative. Marcus studied her thoughtfully. Hunters survive by convincing humans we are monsters, he said. You standing here complicates that story. Outside, a booming voice echoed across the cliffs. King Lucien Valemont. A hunter leader shouted through amplified sound. Release the human girl and we will withdraw. Elena's jaw tightened. Lucien stepped forward toward the balcony. But Elena moved first. She walked past him. Elena, he warned quietly. She stopped in front of him. You said I wouldn't stand alone. His eyes darkened slightly. You will not. Then trust me. For one suspended heartbeat, centuries of instinct battled within him. Control. Protection. Dominance. But beneath it all, respect. He stepped aside. Together, they walked onto the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Below, hunters in tactical armor stood with weapons raised, not firing yet, but ready. The leader removed his helmet. He was human. Mid-40s. Hardened eyes. You don't belong with them, he shouted up at Elena. You're being manipulated. A murmur rippled through his ranks. Elena stepped forward to the stone railing. I walked here on my own, she called back, her voice steady despite the wind. No one forced me. You're blinded, he yelled. They kill humans. And humans have never killed each other, she shot back. Silence flickered across the cliffside. The hunter leader frowned. Lucien stood behind her, not shielding her, not speaking for her. Letting her voice carry. You're hunting monsters, Elena continued, but you've decided what a monster looks like without seeing it. The hunter's jaw tightened. They drink blood. Yes, she said calmly. And you wage war. Which one of those is more human? Some hunters shifted uncomfortably. The leader pointed at Lucien. He gave you his blood. You're bound to him. Elena did not deny it. Yes. Gasps echoed below. And I chose that bond, she continued. He saved my life. And I chose to stay. Lucien felt the words settle deep. Chosen. Again. You think I'm weak? She pressed. You think I don't know who stands behind me? The hunter's silence answered. I know exactly who he is, she said. And he knows exactly who I am. She turned slightly, glancing back at Lucien. And neither of us kneels out of fear. The wind whipped her hair across her face, but her voice never trembled. You call yourselves protectors, she said to the hunters. But you targeted servants. Human guards. Workers who had nothing to do with your fight. A few hunters lowered their weapons slightly. The leader's voice hardened. They are collateral damage in a larger war. Elena's eyes sharpened. That's what tyrants say. The word struck. Lucien felt something ancient shift in the air. The sigil beneath the palace floor began to glow faintly again. The hunter leader raised his weapon. This ends tonight, he said. Lucien stepped forward at last. If you fire, he said calmly, you will not leave this cliff. Power radiated from him, not wild, not reckless, but absolute. The hunter leader hesitated. And that was the moment Elena understood something vital. Fear fueled both sides. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing power. Fear of losing the story each side told about the other. She stepped down from the balcony stairs. Elena. Marcus called sharply. But Lucien did not stop her. She walked through the courtyard gates. Alone. The hunters tensed. She raised her hands, empty. No weapons, she said clearly. If you want to prove you're better than monsters, then act like it. The hunter leader stared at her. You'd walk into our ranks? Yes. You trust us? No, she said honestly. But I'm choosing courage anyway. Silence fell heavy. Slowly, she stopped several feet from the front line. I lost my mother because people valued money over mercy, she said. I know what cruelty looks like. And I've seen it on both sides. Her voice softened, but carried. You think killing him ends something. It doesn't. It starts something worse. The hunter leader's grip tightened on his weapon. You've been deceived. Have I? She asked gently. Or have you? Behind her, Lucien stood perfectly still, trusting her. For the first time in his long reign, he was not leading the confrontation. He was witnessing it. The sigil beneath the palace began to pulse brighter. A low hum vibrated through the ground. The hunters looked down uneasily. Light spread across the courtyard stones, royal blue. The same color from the trial. The same recognition. The bond between vampire king and human girl surged visibly, threads of luminous energy weaving through the air. The hunter leader stared in disbelief. What is that? Elena turned slowly. It's not control, she said softly. It's balance. The light extended outward, not burning, not harming, but illuminating, revealing. In that glow, the hunters saw something unexpected. Vampire guards standing protectively around human staff. Human workers standing unafraid beside immortal soldiers. No chains. No fear. Only choice. The illusion of pure monstrosity fractured. Lucien stepped forward then, not to threaten, but to speak. You have hunted us for centuries, he said calmly. And we have hidden from you. Both sides built stories. He looked directly at the leader. But she stands between those stories. The hunter leader lowered his weapon slightly. This changes nothing, he muttered. It changes everything, Elena replied. The wind quieted. The ocean below seemed to pause. You can walk away tonight, she said gently. Not in defeat. In evolution. The word hung between them. Evolution. The hunter leader looked at his ranks. Uncertainty flickered. Finally, slowly he lowered his weapon fully. One by one others followed. We will withdraw, he said stiffly. But this isn't trust. Elena nodded. It's a beginning. The hunters retreated into the darkness. No bloodshed. No massacre. Only silence. When the gates closed again, Elena exhaled shakily. Her knees nearly gave out, but Lucien was there instantly. Not lifting her. Not claiming her. Simply steadying her. You disobeyed direct tactical protocol, Marcus muttered, though relief edged his tone. Lucien looked at Elena. You faced an army. She gave a tired smile. I was terrified. Yes, he said softly. And you stood anyway. The palace quieted slowly. Dawn began to paint the sky in pale gold. In the throne chamber later that morning, the council gathered once more. This time there was no accusation in their eyes. Only recognition. The frost-haired woman stepped forward. "The sigil has not shone that brightly in centuries," she said. "It responded not to power, but to principle." She turned to Elena. "You have altered the trajectory of two worlds." Elena shook her head gently. "I just told the truth." "And that," the woman replied, "is rarer than immortality." Lucien stood from the throne. He walked down the steps. Not as ruler. Not as conqueror. But as equal. "Elena Marquez," he said clearly before the entire chamber, "you were never meant to kneel in this palace." The council watched closely. He extended his hand. "Stand with me. Not beneath. Not behind. With." She placed her hand in his. The sigil pulsed one final time, steady and calm. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Balanced. And in that moment the prophecy fulfilled itself, not through domination, not through bloodshed, but through choice, through respect, through courage. The poor human girl who once knelt on a shattered vase now stood at the heart of a kingdom. Not because she was powerful, but because she refused to surrender her kindness in a world ruled by fear. And the vampire king, once feared for his cold immortality, learned that true strength was not in commanding obedience, but in earning trust. The world beyond the cliffs would take time to change. There would be resistance. There would be doubt. But something had shifted. Not through violence. Through voice. And as dawn fully broke over Blackthorne Palace, illuminating stone and sea alike, one truth settled across both human and immortal hearts. Respect everyone. Underestimate no one. And never mistake compassion for weakness. Because sometimes, the most powerful queen is the one who was never meant to kneel.